From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. With me from Perth is Clint Wilden for the ABC and Charu Sharma for Akashvani is in Dubai. Now, for nearly 3 weeks after Rohit Sharma's sudden retirement from Test cricket, the Indian Cricket Board has ended speculation over his successor by naming Shubman Gill as India's new Test captain. He has led his country before, most recently during the T20 series in Zimbabwe last year. His first permanent assignment as skipper, though, will be in a few weeks' time with the 5 Test series against England. Now, at 25, Gill becomes India's 37th Test captain and one of its youngest. He's from Punjab and says following in the footsteps of the likes of Sharma, Virat Kohli and Sachin Tendulkar is, in his words, the ultimate honour. But what kind of captain will he be? Well, we'll get the thoughts of Charu and Clint in just a sec, but first let's hear from someone who's worked with him and knows him well. India's former fielding coach, Ramakrishnan Sridhar, spent 7 years in the Indian setup between 2014 and 2021. He first met a young Gill during his Test debut 5 years ago, and he told me what the new captain is like, both as a man and a cricketer.
Hi, Alison. Thank you for having me on the show. And Shubman Gill, I think we saw it in 2019 when he first made it to the Indian cricket team. We were on a tour in New Zealand. After the Border Gavaskar Trophy, we were traveling to New Zealand. That's when Shubman Gill came straight out of under-19s into the Indian team. And when he batted for the first time in the nets, us support staff were looking at each other and we're thinking a new star is born. And I have to mention that because that was the impact Gill had when he first straight away came into the senior national team after having a wonderful under-19 World Cup in 2018 in New Zealand. So he came to New Zealand to make his international debut as well. From that time to now, obviously he's grown in stature, he's grown as a person, he's grown as a batter, and he's picked up a lot of qualities from the leaders under whom he has played. And by 2021, we knew that it was inevitable that he's going to be the next captain of the Indian men's national cricket team.
What was it that you saw in him in particular then that made you know in 2021 that he was being earmarked?
If I have to tell you the truth, we saw that he had that aura of an athlete who can lead the team. At that point in time, I wouldn't say it was his leadership skills which made me think about it, but he has developed on that aspect. But at that point in time, we saw that he could be one who would be a fit in all formats and who could become a force to reckon with his batsmanship. Although his numbers in England are not great yet. But yeah, we saw him as being one of the primary centrifugal figures of the Indian cricket team. And he could be a good candidate for leadership. And I'm not surprised one bit that he landed up the job now.
I know you wrote a book in 2021 about your time with the India team, and there was a particular incident you wrote about there where you took Shubman Gill for lunch and actually told him he needed to buck up his ideas a little bit because his teammates and others were already looking to him for leadership and inspiration, as you say. What do you remember of that moment, and do you think it played a part in the Shubman Gill that we see today?
Well, I don't know if it's played a part. The conversation I had with him, I remember vividly, was about making his presence felt more on the field and off the field. Shubman is a shy bloke, but that doesn't mean that he does not have leadership skills. He's got extremely good cricketing brain. He's tactically, he came up with some points which we feel that it's a good point. It's coming from him. So, he had the thought process, he could assess the game. He came up with stuff which were very good at that point in time. And also, he had a very calming demeanor in the change room, which is quite important for a leader to have. Yes, a leader should be aggressive on the field like a Virat Kohli, or he could be tactically brilliant like a Rohit Sharma. But Shubman Gill, we saw a bit of both. And sometimes on the park, he liked to, play a more a sedate role, and that is what I told him. When you are on the park, people should see that you're there. They should take note that this man is going to create a difference for the team. And he didn't need to look too far for inspiration. He had Virat Kohli on one side, he had Rohit Sharma on the other side, he had Bumrah to look up to. So he had some very good leaders within the team as well. So that is what that conversation was all about him observing these top gun leaders for the Indian cricket team at that point in time, and see how he can uh, bring his nature, his demeanor, how he can bring in those qualities, and club them all together to become a good leader for the future.
Is that almost his biggest challenge, to be himself in a team that has been led by such big figures? Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli is who he's following on from.
Yeah, that could be a challenge, big boots to fill, especially when they just won a World T20 World Cup and a Champions Trophy. Obviously, I would say that with regards to Test cricket, I think he's in a little easier place because India has not had a great time of late with red ball. They've lost the Bodagavaskar Trophy to Australia after holding on to it for more than 10 years. And they've lost a series at home against New Zealand, which no one saw it coming, And so I don't think there is too much pressure. And with all the big guns having retired, it's quite an inexperienced side. And I don't think anyone across the nation is expecting this team to go and win in England.
You don't think?
Yeah. I mean, that's a general mood when I talk to the pundits. So yeah, they'll go there and compete, sure. But yes, Broad and Anderson are not there. So that's a big relief. But I don't think many are expecting this team to go and win the series. So that would probably lighten the weight a little bit for the young captain. The only thing I would advise him to just be yourself, back your gut, and just go in there and do what you do for Gujarat Titans or for any other team that you're leading. He's led quite a bit in the IPL now, a couple of seasons, and he's done a little captaincy work with the EA squads and stuff like that. So he's not new to leadership. He's been groomed well by Rohit Sharma in the India-England series, which happened in India about 18 months ago. So, yeah, he's got a lot of information. He's got a good support staff around him. So, yeah, he should just be himself, and that is going to be his biggest challenge. But make no mistake, that is what will bring him success.
How do you feel the team will need to play in this upcoming Test tour of England? Because you were part of their coaching setup, the famous Border Gavaskar Trophy wins in Australia, first in 2018-19 under Ravi Shastri, and 2021. So you're quite well placed to comment, then on, I guess, what went wrong over the winter when, you referenced that loss to New Zealand. What do they need to do against England in England?
I think they have to be bold. The conditions are going to be challenging. You see, Test cricket is finishing by August 3rd. I played a series in England when the series started on August 1st, and we generally finished the Oval Test on September 11th or 14th or something like that. But now it's early part of summer. Well, it is warm. I'm not saying no, but so the weather could pose a challenge because they're finishing by August in this series. So July is a good month to play Test cricket in England. It's going to be nice and hot. But the challenge would be for the batters. Definitely, the challenge would be for the batters to go and adapt and play an aggressive brand of cricket. We saw England do that against Zimbabwe a couple of days ago, score almost 500 runs in a day, record stumbled. But India will have to take a leaf out of that book and meet fire with fire. I mean, definitely India will have to take the aggressive option, take the positive option whenever there is a dilemma, take the positive route, be optimistic. And if you are making a mistake on the aggressive side, rather than making a mistake on by staying on the timid side, by making a mistake on the aggressive side. That is what the Indian team needs to do to go ahead of England in the games. in England, it's going to be a up and down ride. You're going to have some sessions going your way, but suddenly the weather changes and things can take a big turn. So that is something we'll have to keep an eye on. But I think they'll have to take an aggressive option whenever available to be successful against this particular England team, especially that Ben Stokes is back now.
Your expertise was fielding, but where do you think in the side Shubman Gill is best placed to bat? Some conjecture over whether the number 3 spot, the number 4 spot should be his now he's captain.
I think he's good at number 4 now that that spot is vacant as well with Virat Kohli not being there. He would be a good fit at number 4. He's open for India. He's played at 3. And I think KL Rahul coming back into the team with his experience, that magnificent 100 he scored at the Lords in the last tour, I can't forget that, still right in my eyes, fresh as a daisy. So I think he should be opening the innings without a doubt, with Yashasvi Jaiswal, with maybe a debutant thrown in at 3 with Sai Sudarshan. And I think Gill would be a good bet to bat at 4, because at times we've seen Jimmy get him with his hard hands of his. Gill is a bit like Zach Crawley, his little hard hands, go like to feel for the ball, tall, hit straight through the line. I feel there's a similarity between those two. So the ball, probably the old Duke's ball, semi-new one, would be better suited to Shubman Gill. So if you ask me, I would say number 4 on this tour.
Lots of talent in Hyderabad by the sounds of it. That's former India fielding coach Sridhar. Clint, I'll get your thoughts in a second. But Charu, your reaction to Shubman Gill being made captain. I mean, you talked about Rishabh Pant as well, and he, of course, has got the roller's vice.
I think nobody in India will object. And I know that T20 has nothing to do with Test match cricket, but he has led GT reasonably well, or GT's done reasonably well under his leadership in the ongoing IPL. And had they not, I think a few people might have said, well, he's not really doing much with GT, is he? And so why is he the India captain? But, his nickname, by the way, from the family and others, is Prince. So he has been the king in the making for very long and does have the temperament. He was, of course, the captain for India when they played Zimbabwe in the short series, the 5-match series, which they won 4-1. He was also the India A captain. That's red ball captaincy. So he's been there. He's been the Indian team for quite a while now. He's had some, wonderful tutelage as well under the biggest and the best. So there's nothing to suggest that he would not take to this role easily. I think also if he's going to field in the slips, then his vice captain, who I thought perhaps should have been captain to begin with, Rishabh Pant, is going to be right next to him. And I have no doubt there'll be a lot of discussion going on about what to do next. The only thing that he needs to be careful of is not to let the pressure of, as Sridhar, who, by the way, made some very good points, mentioned, some sessions are not going to go for you. And is he going to keep his cool then and say, it's okay to lose a few sessions. Let's just reorganize our bowling. And I think the Indians are fielding pretty well, too. So they'll take their catches. It should be a reasonable series. But, I think, there's an overwhelming, perhaps 90% agreement on Gill being the man to lead India.
Clint, how's it gone down in Australia? India, Australia, famous foes now. Next time they come up against each other, a different leader.
I'm embarrassed to admit, Ali, with barely a blip here. And I do wonder if that's because Gill didn't play in the first test in Perth and then was dropped at the end of the series here. So didn't make a massive a mark when he was playing with India, whether or not he hasn't really grabbed the Australians' attentions. I know we're in the middle of our 2 football seasons, rugby league in the northern states, Australian football in the southern states. That takes all the paper inches. And we have seen a bit cricket-wise on how Cam Green's been travelling, and also not as well, but Marnus Labuschagne. So disappointingly, almost nothing in the paper editions of The Age, the Herald Sun, the West Australian, not a blip. But again, if you're a cricket person, you've been keeping an eye on the cricket websites, the cricket apps, and that's where the news came through. I agree with what everyone said here. And I also think in what is a rejuvenating team, a rebuilding team with some of those big names no longer with India, when you're 25 years of age, you're part of that team that's rebuilding. You can grow with them. So I think that's really fascinating. The only question I would have, and it's a very tiny one because of the number of tests he's played, only has the 100 away from home. So that's I guess, the asterisk to go with him. But, yeah, I was really surprised. We barely saw a tiny mention of it here. And I just think I put it down to he just didn't have the greatest series down under when he was here last.
And you're not in the cricket season, whereas in England, India are the opponents coming here. So it is very much in the news at the moment. Charu, you said that Sridhar had a number of good points that he made there. What about what he said, and particularly about him needing to be his own man, when it comes to the captaincy?
Well, he has to be, because you can't be someone else, not for long anyway. I think he has had time to discover himself, and attitudinally or as a personality, he's actually pretty even, which is great. I think you don't have to be one way or the other. You don't have to be particularly cool, as maybe Dhoni was made out to be, or crazy aggressive as Kohli always was and is. Somewhere in the middle is fine. I think he does show a little bit of, he gets upset when there's something going wrong in the field, but not particularly. I mean, he's not given to any tantrums, or he doesn't rant, and he doesn't wave his hands about. And I think that's good for a younger captain, because remember, he does have some older people who've got much more experience than him in the team. And I think it'd be foolish for him to try and be a little irritated at something going wrong in the field with seniors, particularly. So his temperament, I think, will come to his rescue very often. Also, the fact that India hasn't been doing too well, Sridhar mentioned that in Test match cricket, is something that will allow him to go under the radar for a test or two before people start getting irritated.
Well, I was going to come to that.
Though. Yeah, well, sorry,
I mean,
more on that later.
No, I was going to say, him saying that he doesn't think there'll be any real pressure on Gill because of recent series defeats for the team. I mean, you'll know the pressures of the Indian captaincy, Charu, and the attention in India, but even, Clinton in Australia, when you take that team abroad, as you'll find in England, but, in Australia as well, surely it's not possible for there to be no real pressure on an India Test captain.
No, I don't believe that to be the case at all. Of course there's going to be pressure on him. And I get what everyone's saying in that India's Test match form has not been terrific, but he would feel some pressure too, surely. I mean, Gill's averaging, less than 15 in England, 88 runs from his 6 Test innings there with a high score of 28. So he would be feeling pressure as a batter, let alone going in as the captain. And it is a role that brings such expectation and such scrutiny. I don't know how there could not be pressure on him, because the team's results mean so much for people. And Charu's right, there will be a little bit of extra give because of what's happened in the past, but it's a tiny, tiny little bit. And it's how he deals with that pressure and that spotlight, I think, will be a major part of his success or otherwise in this role. I don't think there's anything like a free hit if you're the Indian captain.
No,
well, it is a crown of thorns, Alison. But I did mention last week also, I think, that, as Clint said, the pressure is much more on his own performance. He's got to lead from the front with the runs. Because the team, everybody will do what they'll do. They're all, hard-boiled professionals. It's not that they're playing outside of India for the first time. And which is why I thought maybe Pant ought to be given the leadership to begin with. Because his role as a wicketkeeper, for instance, the batting runs are a fabulous bonus. And he has that kind of carefree attitude which was, I think, disturbed a bit during the IPL because of the losses. But he's essentially a carefree character and might have led India with less pressure to begin with, because his place is more or less guaranteed. But Gill, who hasn't scored much, Clint mentioned only 1 century outside of India, is the one where he needs to do well in England as a batsman. And I thought that if the pressure was taken away of captaincy, he might just focus on what do I need to do with the bat. And conditions are not going to be easy at all, even though you don't have the same pace attack you did. But that's the one reason I thought he shouldn't have been given captaincy, because his own leadership in terms of runs is far more important to India than leadership as a captain, which anybody else really could have done the job.
Well, there's already been one India captain who dropped himself for lack of runs in Rohit Sharma. So Shubman Gill, step number 1, score runs in England and cement your place in the team and as captain. That's going to be so, so important for him. Clint, Charu, great to have you. That's all we've got time for on this week's Stump. So we'll see you again next week. Until then, bye for now.